Last podcast, I talked about how the boundaries of HR work are gradually evolving and how organizations are trying to build capabilities to adapt more confidently to new changes such as AI. And while I was reflecting on that shift, I remembered a conversation I once had with an HR director. When I had inquired about how the organization's HR department keeps track of the operational flow that makes its processes streamlined, I was given the employee related policy and onboarding manual that contained the company structure and activities jotted down to the last detail. It was a massive manual, more than 100 pages long, maybe, and honestly, it was rather impressive. But when I started observing what happened on the ground, I could see that the real operational workflows looked completely different from what the policies had described. This was because people had adapted processes informally to keep the work moving, and teams coordinated outside documented structures due to the siloed information that was present with them. Managers also improvised around operational realities that the policies had never anticipated. And over time, the actual business workflows had gradually evolved beyond what was in the documented processes into something completely new, which makes me wonder, why do organizations invest so much energy into building static policy structures when we already know that the operational reality keeps changing beneath them? This might be because policies often provide a sense of stability. They give organizations a feeling that work is structured, predictable, and controllable, even when the underlying environment becomes more dynamic. And for a long time, that process actually made sense. Most organizations operated in relatively stable environments. Here, change was slow. Policy structures were thus enough for static processes and could be adjusted or modified from time to time when any change did happen. But once AI starts accelerating execution, keeping track of work through written policy becomes close to impossible. On the other hand, if the policy structure is automated, all that really happens is that confusion is generated at scale. Because automation does not fix operational misalignment, it rather speeds up the process at which HR gets misaligned. And this is where organizations begin hitting a new kind of bottleneck. The challenge is no longer in building processes or policies, it is in building systems that can continuously remain aligned with how work is actually happening in the organization. This may require moving away from static workforce policies and towards something more malleable and adaptable to change. Something that will not only help in keeping the structure intact, but flexible enough to stay aligned with how the organization behaves. For this, HR must build systems that behave more like dynamic operational charters than rigid instruction manuals. And that raises another important question. What does a policy look like when it is designed to handle change when the organization changes, instead of remaining fixed when the organization changes around it? It looks not like a rigid steps and more like a set of operational rails with clear business goals, ethical boundaries, and accountability structures, which is flexible enough for teams to adapt and execution to change based on operational realities. Which means HR is able to adapt, learn, and collaborate in real time from the practices on the ground and map policies directly in line with how the business is actually executing its day to day work. This reduces the gap between how teams actually execute work on the ground and how HR is supporting the execution, whether it be through training, performance, or setting incentives. HR can then actually support the teams to achieve business goal through its work. Apart from that, HR can actually track when a workflow slows down or a previous system's practice breaks down in the organization. This friction that led to the breakdown can actually become useful information that the HR can benchmark and manage by building systems using AI. This can actually help workforce realities. Even though HR teams have already had to change policies based on changing operational situations, the difference is now that AI exposes how large the gap actually becomes between documented processes and work that actually happens on the ground. In the end, it may be worth asking, are we still building processes that document how the work was originally designed? Or are we now building systems capable enough to adapt how the work is actually evolving? Thank you for listening. I hope you liked what I was trying to say.